Hi, I'm Nisande. I already made a video about pets, but this one is more broadly about domestication and use of animals for more than companionship. These are aurochs. They're wild animals that can be found in the glacier. I've talked about the rare false bull that preys on them and how it has been somewhat domesticated to be a draft animal. Something I haven't talked about is that aurochs have also been domesticated, and have been for much longer. The common word for them is cow, but in and around Noir they're known as yaks, and in the Orient they're known as sangu. The breeds on the left are very old, and likely have DNA from now extinct relatives of aurochs from when they were first domesticated. The breeds on the right are more recent derivatives of the yak bred in Buxina, specialized for certain outputs but only really kept by humanoids there. The yak and sangu used to be used as draft oxen, but the yak was replaced by the false bull because the latter needs to spend much less time eating, and the sangu was replaced by the hippogriph or hippocamp depending on where the work is. Cows are still used for meat, milk, and other products because what they eat happens to be really convenient, at least for humanoids. If you know any humanoids, you probably know how much they depend on grains. Wheat, maize, rice, rye. Humanoids love that shit. Something tough about grains like that though is that they have these really tough husks and other byproducts that you basically just have to toss. Unless you have a weird creature that can eat it. Cows are that weird creature. They also like to graze in fields for stuff like grass, which humanoids notably do not eat. At least not the leaves. Basically, the advantage of cows is that not only do they not eat what humanoids eat, they also eat the byproducts of what humanoids do eat that humanoids can't eat. You understand. I'd like to get a little more into the hippogriff and the hippocamp, the former of which I talked about in the pets video, and the latter I talked about in my hybrids video. Hippogriffs are bred almost worldwide as a strong working or riding animal, though they work best on flat terrain, preferably roads. In the Occident, where most people are carnivores, hippogriffs usually eat the leftover bits of meat that most people prefer not to eat. While in the Orient, where humanoids are common, they'll do that, but also eat grains sometimes. It seems they're ancestrally carnivores, but those damn humanoids got them eating grains. This is extremely common for carnivores domesticated by humans, probably because it benefits them to eat whatever humanoids have around. In the pets video, I incorrectly stated that hippogriffs were flightless. This is false, but they are some of the most terrestrially adapted pterosaurs. Their bouts of flight are more like glorified jumping when a whole person is on them, but it proves very useful in amount anyway. Pterosaurs likely have no need of losing their flight in the way that birds often do, because birds have that trade-off of hind legs to forelegs, the latter of which they use as wings. Because of how much energy it takes to fly, it eventually becomes more worth it for terrestrially adapted birds to focus on those legs and let the wings atrophy. Meanwhile, pterosaurs fly on their forelegs and walk on them. They can spec into max terrestrial adaptation and still have the musculature needed to fly, which is what we see in hippogriffs. Hippocamps are common in the Orient, especially in the far eastern areas. They're used as working animals that tread uneven ground, though they also prefer cool or temperate climates as they require lots of water. An animal most considered an upgrade to the hippocamp is the drylock, a hybrid between male hippocamp and a female kelpie. Kelpies are wild animals from western Anthropos though, and they're not exactly easy to find. Since drylocks are sterile, breeding them requires kelpies every time, which makes drylocks somewhat uncommon, even though they require much less water and can survive a trek through a desert. There are two main breeds. One is for racing, such as the King's Head breed. They have long legs and relatively slender bodies to maximize speed. The other sort of breed is for carrying heavy loads. Draft hippocamps have thick legs and powerful large bodies for their work. They weigh much more than racing hippocamps and can be absolutely gigantic. Another riding and working animal found in the Orient is the donkey, as seen on the top middle. It's used where hippocamps aren't, by people too poor to own a drylock or a hippogriff. It's not as immediately obedient than either, but it seems to be more intelligent. It works extremely well with people who have earned its trust. It's domesticated from the Gorkhar of the steppe and is a bit more powerful than hippocamps and hippogriffs, though it works best on flat ground and isn't as fast as hippogriffs. While they do look similar to Gorkhar, donkeys have a more curved back, more pronounced hindquarters, and often have distinct coloration. In cultures that favor donkeys over other riding and working animals for one reason or another, they pair it with a wild relative called Achdari to create the hybrid Kunga. This equid is sterile like other drylocks, but extremely strong and lively. Rumors say only royalty are allowed to ride it. Similarly, quaggas are also paired with another wild relative called quaggas to create the hybrid mule. Mules are usually sterile, but sometimes a female can breed back with another equid, usually a donkey since those are kept in the same place. Rumors say the ultimate hybrid would be between a mule and an Akhdari, but some say it might be a bit too wild. Pigs are common domesticated animals in the Orient. The top left is a wild boar, an uncommon sight near settled areas as they're hunted to near extinction for stealing crops. The bottom left is the common pig, which has been domesticated in Esperique for millennia. Escaped or feral common pigs are known to interbreed with wild boars, creating hybrids that are better suited for city life and stealing crops. More recently, the hybrid pigs were domesticated as well, once by Anthropos to create the tusk pig, and once by Buxana to create the wool pig. While pigs are mostly a human thing, their omnivorous nature makes them pretty ideal for any species to domesticate and or breed, which is why you see them kept commonly in Ushus-dominated Buxana by more than just humanoids. Some people even keep them in the Occident, but other domesticated animals dominate there. Before we get there though, I want to talk about the reindeer of Taurus. They're a common newer culture disconnected from most of society, the bubblegum people. One of their staple crops is a red algae farmed from a pond they call sacred. It gives them a pinkish color, though obviously it shows most where they have less melanin. They've domesticated reindeers and have 4 distinct breeds. All subsist on that bubblegum algae, so they have the distinct coloration as well. Known as Sami, there's Butcher Sami, Dairy Sami, Companion Sami, and Sami Ox. Pollito are livestock bred and domesticated in Sudoja. They've been bred since before agriculture and are as carnivorous as their masters. While they used to help hunt and also serve as something to be hunted, they're almost exclusively bred to be eaten nowadays. Breeds made for hunting companions are called cockatrices. They're surprisingly smart and commonly go against their master if they think their own idea is better. Similarly to donkeys, one who wants to work closely with a cockatrice must earn its trust. They usually eat unwanted cuts of meat, but a companion might get a nicely cooked steak as a treat. Ushus are known more for stealing the domesticated animals and plants of other cultures than for making any of their own, and are known for not using any mounts since they kind of are the mount. But one animal they did domesticate is the sapient Rifa. I've talked about that in the Ushus video, but yeah, one of the biggest embarrassments of Ushus history is their slaver era. Thousands of years ago, they subdued Lycan's million-year-old rival people and extincted them except for a small captive population. They selected the least aggressive and most obedient workers to reproduce, with similarly submissive drones, and create queens that could mass-produce Rifa with their ideal traits. Over the years, they became the Rifa we know today that were only freed because of outside intervention. While Rifa are people with their own dreams and desires, they are extremely averse to any sort of aggression and will easily forfeit what they want to please a friend or acquaintance. Anyone who wishes to be in any kind of relationship with a Rifa needs to become an expert in asking them whether the Rifa really wants something or if they're just saying that to make someone else feel better. It takes many years and a lot of emotional maturity for a Rifa to learn to overcome their faults brought on by domestication, but it can be done. What Ushus did to Rifa is argued as the worst thing any culture has done to another in recorded history. But back to a lighter topic, an animal domesticated by Sudosians after they learned agriculture from the people they genocided is called a Morgus. The adults are also known as Therixeno, and these animals have a powerful fire sac in their throat that allows for flaming belches without any magic at all. Still, they usually use magic to power it up if they're trying to do real damage. Strangely, they walk on their forelegs and use their hind limbs for dexterity. They are also quite intelligent, but unfortunately are primarily bred as livestock to be eaten. The fire sac contains fermented foodidate, and eating it can usually get someone drunk. They're considered a delicacy, while the rest of the animal is just good eating. They can technically be mounted, but there's not much reason to use them over hippogriffs since the latter are not only faster, but are also much better bred for riding and won't get uncomfy or freak out. Therixeno favor fruit, but they're happy to eat pretty much any sort of plant matter. Sudosian agriculture is mostly for Therixeno and other herbivorous livestock, since Sudosians are carnivorous, but it works out well since they can eat their livestock more dependably than hunting. Another animal domesticated by Sudosians in a similar circumstance is the Blimp Turtle, though it's most often kept in Ushus' hands nowadays. It's actually a dinosaur and not a turtle, but that's semantics. They can flit away from danger, but it's slow enough that they're really easy to catch after they just ate. No truly wild version is alive today, so it's unknown if they used to be better at that before they were domesticated. Blimp turtles eat super hardy plant matter like grass leaves and grain husks that even humanoids can't eat. This makes them useful livestock even for humanoids, so you see them sometimes in the glaciant. Blimp turtles are almost exclusively bred to be slaughtered, after which the meat is most valuable, but the skin from those balloon spines is also used for all sorts of things. Blimp turtles are a remnant from a really old line of dinosaurs that mostly went extinct in the Jurassic. A third animal of similar sorts is the Dinnerbird. They're similar to pollitos, but less intelligent and more omnivorous. They were thought to be the first of the last three that were domesticated since they don't depend on agriculture to be kept by Pseudosians. They are favored by Nyushus for their taste and are often hunted for sport. I've heard Nyushitos love pouncing on them and going for the neck. Carnivores and their prey drives, I guess. Usually Dinnerbirds and Therixeno get what we consider the best, most nutritious meals that humanoids usually reserve for themselves. Grains, fruits, and their products. Meanwhile, Blimp Turtles share the leftovers with the next animal. Baribus are very smart animals often confined to a fate of slaughter. They are classified as hadrosaurs, which have the most developed herbivorous GI system of all dragons. Most are much too large and rowdy to be domesticated, but Baribus are some of the smallest. Because of all that, they're prized as being very efficient and very tasty, since they're able to make the most out of traditionally non-nutritious meals like grass leaves and grain husks. While Pseudosians often get the credit for domesticating these animals, it was actually their sister species, Sporovvye. Sporovvye don't engage in agriculture though, and they certainly don't eat Baribus. Sporovvye are known for their solitary nature and culture of wandering the continent all alone. They're really not all alone though, because every Sporovvye is traveling with at least one Baribus to carry their wares. Traditionally, when two Sporovvye meet to mate, their Baribus will also mate. After the baby is born, the mother Sporovvye will pick from the litter of 3 to 5 Baribus hatchlings and keep one with a sex that matches the sex of the baby. The rest will go to the father unless they arrange a different agreement. From when they met to mate till now, the mother and father Sporovvye have been traveling close by, usually within half a kilometer, which is almost like traveling together by Sporovvye standards. They do this so the father can impose his physical strength to protect the pregnant mother from any unsavory business, and the father can support her with hunted food while she may be too sickly to even walk. Pseudosian pregnancy is really rough, and Sporovvye pregnancies are no different. After a little under a year, the baby is born and the Baribus eggs hatch around the same time. If the mother survives the birth, the father will leave to do his own business a few weeks later while the mother takes care of the baby and the hatchling. But if the mother doesn't survive, the father takes on the role of parenting. About 20% of Sporovvye pregnancies end in the death of the mother, so there's notably more males older than 16 years, which gets more drastic until early 40s when women stop producing. Sporovvye women generally have 4 children during their lifetime, so there are 3 times more men older than 40 than women older than 40. I forgot I was talking about Baribus, I went on a tangent, sorry. Obviously a Sporovvye doesn't have to mate with someone to get a Baribus. They can buy one from another Sporovvye, or if they have a female they can just pay to breed it with someone else's. It's just traditional that they mate their first Baribus with their partner's first Baribus to make their baby's first Baribus. These animals aren't just mounts or walking suitcases though, they're close friends. Anyone buying a Baribus to try to use in the same way as Sporovvye use them will soon learn that these animals are extremely stubborn when they don't trust or like someone. It takes months of building trust and being around the animal and feeding them for it to let someone put anything on its back, much less the person themselves. Even a Sporovvye will usually lead the Baribus holding all their stuff rather than ride on it, and the only time they actually mount it is to move fast for something like running away from danger or even running into danger to fight it. The latter is only doable if the Baribus really trusts the rider, as it will usually refuse to do anything it finds dangerous. They have a much higher self-preservation instinct than the average mount, which most riders find contemptible. Still, they're a very unique and capable animal that you'll usually only see when you encounter a wandering Sporovvye in the Occident. That's all I got for this video. Thanks Captain Kobop, Art of Dying, Saint Starman, and Aster for supporting me on Patreon. Bye!